Hello, Mario here. Today we're going to do part 2 of Storyboard Pro. In this video, we're going to talk about camera moves, layer moves, transitions, and importing sound. Now, camera moves are when you want to move the camera around the scene. Okay? Don't move the background, move the camera. Layer moves is if you want like a car to move or a ball to move, to roll. You can simulate a character walking. It won't be a walk cycle. The character will actually be sliding to simulate a walk cycle. Now remember, this is Storyboard Pro. This is storyboarding software, not animation software. So we're not going to make a walk cycle. We're going to simulate it with a layer move. Transitions are cross dissolves that are going to happen between scenes. And we're going to import some sound. Hope you like it. Before we get started, let's look at some of these tips here. The first one, make sure your scenes are separated correctly. Okay, make sure that if the same camera angle and you have 3 panels with the same camera angle, put them in the same scene. Otherwise, have them in separate scenes. If you're not quite sure how to do that, watch video 1. That'll help you. Make sure we use the timeline view. This whole video, I'm using the timeline view, and I'll show you what that is. In order to hear sound or see the camera moves, we have to enable sound and enable the camera. You have to enable those. Okay, again, I'm going to show you that. To enable keys, you have to hit the plus beside that layer where you want to set those keys. And last, you can actually edit the sound just by right-clicking it and see the waveform, or see the volume control where you can set your volumes, or even right-click and cut and snip the sound. Let's get started. In the previous video, we talked about the difference between a panel and a scene. And this is really important, especially in this stage that we're at now. Okay? A scene can have a bunch of panels in it. But when we talk about transitions, transitions happen between scenes, not between panels. Okay, so remember that. Also, camera moves, they span across the entire scene. So if you have 4 panels in a row, all in one scene, one camera move will go across all 4 panels. Okay, so it is important to know what the difference is between a panel and a scene, and also know when to use a new scene. Right? A new scene is a new camera position. Okay, so remember, use scenes correctly, your camera moves will be easier, and your transitions will be easier. In case you can't remember what looks like a scene and what looks like a panel, well, these are 4 panels. Okay, that part's pretty simple. Where it gets tricky is how to decide which one is a scene versus which one's a panel. So if you look at panel 1, it's the only one with a dark border. So that's scene 1. And we also know that by the number 1 in the top. Okay? So that's scene 1, panel 1 of 1. 2 and 3, they both have a gray border. And if you look at the top of both of them, they both have the number 2 in the top left. So that means panel 2 and 3 are both in scene 2. Okay? And scene 4 is the only one with another dark border, so that's scene 3. So there's only 3 scenes here, but there's 4 panels. And the middle 2 are in the same scene. For this whole session today, we're going to be in the timeline view. Okay, if you're looking across the top, you could see that there's a treble clef, a music note. Okay, and there it is enlarged. And that's what we're going to click on to get our timeline view. So here I am in the timeline view, and you can see right here, these are the layers that we're going to be working with. Okay, you got your camera view, you got your layer move for your layers right there, and you have your actual view to see all your panels right across there. Okay, we also have our timeline that we can move across, or our playhead. that we can move across. Okay, so we have our camera layer, our drawing layer, and our layer for layer moves. Now that we're in the timeline view, any sound that we add or any camera moves that we make, we're going to want to see them or hear them, right? So across the top where your play button is, just a couple more down, you could see a speaker and you could see the camera with a set of eyes. Make sure both the speaker's turned on and the camera's turned on. Otherwise, you won't hear the sound and you won't see the camera moves. So those last two icons, make sure they're clicked on as I have them right now. Okay, so let's actually do a camera move right now. Okay, so in the top right, you could see that icon. We're going to be using that icon in the software. And you can see it here in the toolbar. Okay, it's just a further down here at the bottom. Okay, now let's do this step by step together. First, go to the timeline view. Well, we did that already, so done. Next, select the scene where you want to do that camera move. So here I am in the software, and let's say I want to do my camera move on the very first scene. So just by clicking and having this playhead here will put us in this scene. Okay, unless I want to do it on scene 2, which is over here, I can click over here and set my playhead on scene 2. But today we're going to do it on scene 1. So again, click on it, and the next step is put your playhead where you want the camera move to start. Okay, so place the playhead where the move starts. So I don't want it to start right at the beginning. I'm going to start it a little bit into that scene. So it's going to hold and then move. Hold at the beginning and then move. Okay, once my playhead is in the right place, the next step is to hit the plus on the camera layer. So here's the plus and here's the camera layer. So I'm going to hit the plus, and that activates a key. See that key there? So now we have a key there, and it's remembering this location of the camera. Okay, if I want to change it, then I go to the camera icon, and I can grab either the top left to truck in, or the center to reposition our camera. So I'm going to start my camera there. And that updated that key. For our second camera location, we put the playhead where we want the camera to stop moving. Okay, because it's going to start over here, and we're going to want it to end, let's say here. Okay, again, I'm going to hit the plus button and adjust it. Let's say I want to truck in a bit. Okay, using the center, I can reposition it. Using the top left, I could truck in and out. So now you could see this is my first camera location, and this is my second camera location. And those are the two keys that will make that work. So if I go to play this, I make sure my camera's turned on and hit play. Okay? So that seemed easy enough, maybe a little complicated to explain, but easy enough. But say, okay, now I have a starting place for my camera and an ending place for my camera, and let's say I want to modify it a bit. Let's take a look. So, as you can see, here's my starting location, and here's my end location. Now let's say I want to change my starting location. Well, I click this little tab at the bottom, and that activates that camera. So I could truck it in a bit, I could move it around a bit. Okay, and that changes that first key. Now if I want to change my second key, again, click this tab, and I can truck out a bit, reposition it, and that will update it. Now let's say it's too fast. and I want to slow it down, well, I could put these keys further apart to make it slower. I can also lengthen that board. So now it'll be a little slower. Okay, now that you've done a camera move, layer moves will be a little easier because it's actually the same, just with a different tool and a different layer. Okay, so we're not going to use the camera layer anymore. We're actually going to use one of the regular layers, whether it's a character or a prop. So here we are in the software, and we saw the camera layer. Underneath, you could see L:A, and that A is for layer A. But let's say we want to do a layer move, but on the character. So I'm going to click up on this character in the layers, and you'll see this changed again. And this is where we're going to do our layer move. So the same thing applies. Put your playhead where you want the layer to start moving. Set a key with the plus. Use this tool, the transform tool, to change the location of that starting position. And that key is now set for that starting location. So to put the second location, let's move the playhead again. Hit plus again. And adjust where the layer or our character is. I'm using the shift key to maintain properties. And there you go. Starting key, end key. And again, it's a slide. It's not a walk cycle. And as you notice, I can adjust these keys. Okay. To do transitions between scenes, these are the icons right here. Okay. It's right along where we add our panels. These are the add panels across the top. At the very end of that is add transition. Okay. And when we're at the end of our scene, we click this to add a transition. So let's do that. So here I am at the end of panel 7, which is actually scene 1. And I want to add a transition between these two. Okay. So I click on the scene, I go up to the top, add transition, and now you'll see it cross dissolves. Now if you want to remove it, you go back up, and right beside where that add transition is, you can minus transition and it'll get rid of it. So again, you have to do it at the end of a scene. So I can't do a transition between these two because they're in the same scene, right? If I click here and add transition, it's going to add it way over here at the end of the scene. Okay, see that? So it only adds it at the end of the scene, not at the end of a panel. Importing sound is also a little tricky. If you click File, Import Sound Clip, you can see it's grayed out. So what we do is we first go to make sure we're in our timeline view, click on our sound layer, which is A1. So if you're looking down here, you can see this is A1 right here. A1. Then go File, Import Sound Clip. But you have to do the first two first. So let's do that. So I'm in the timeline view, right? Click on the layer. then File, Import, and now you can see it's active. File, Import Sound Clip. And I'm just going to browse to my desktop and grab a sound file. So now that I've browsed and selected the file that I want to import, I have the option to actually import it into that existing track that I selected, which was A1, or I can create a new track. Generally, I create a new track, but you can put it on the existing. Really doesn't make a big difference. Now, do you want the music or the sound to start on the first frame or where the playhead is? So right now my playhead is further down, it's 18 seconds in. So I can say start at 18 seconds or start right from frame 1. I'm going to start it at the current frame, 18 seconds in, and hit OK. So it imports it, and you can see it's now starting at the 18-second mark. Now let's say I went, oh, that's not where I wanted it. I could still move it. I can move it later. Now that you have sound imported, you might want to edit that sound. Okay? A lot of the stuff that you're going to do with the sound is right-click and you're going to enable things. So for example, the first thing I do is I right-click the sound file, show waveform, right-click again, show volume. So let's do that. So I'm going to right-click that sound file that I brought in, show waveform. Now we can see that waveform. Right-click again, show volume. Okay, and that shows you how loud it's going to be and lets us control the volume. If we want to set keys on the volume, you Alt-click. Alt-click will add keys to let you fade it in. Maybe bring it louder in a spot. Alt-click again, bring it louder, just in that one spot. Or bring it quieter in a spot. So I'm Alt-clicking on that volume line. And the last thing is, let's say you want to split right here. You put your playhead where you want to split it, right-click, and split clip at current frame. So now I can move that later, or I could even delete that half. Alright, so just to recap those tips, hopefully these help. Make sure your scenes are correct. So don't have different camera angles in the same scene, because the camera moves that you make won't make sense. So make sure you're using scenes correctly. Use the timeline view, as you saw me use throughout the entire video. In order to see camera moves and hear the sound, you have to activate those. So make sure you click those two icons at the top. When you want to set a key, whether it's for a camera or for a layer move, beside the layer, click the plus, and that enables keys, or sets a key. Lastly, if you want to do some sound edit, you could do a little bit of sound edit in this. Just right-click the sound, enable waveform, enable volume, so you could see both the volume and the waveform, and that also lets you set keys. You can also right-click and snip your sound file and move parts around. Hope this video was helpful. Okay, so for this version, you really want to learn storyboarding, don't you?